Okay, so I want to talk about Nerdy Crew. I want to talk about the brand that I created. It's kind of funny because I never intended to make a clothing company. I never intended to build a brand. I never did. It was just, it started off like this. It's kind of funny. It started off 2.5, almost 3 years ago. I was making a lot of music videos for my music because that's what I was doing at the time. I believed that I was going to be a musician. Still could be, but at this time, music is bad right now, so I don't know. But I was in music. I did music for a very, very long time, and I was building towards that because that was my dream. My dream was to do music. So, I kept working towards that, and I always knew how to dress. I always knew how to dress. I always had the ability to dress because my mom and my grandfather, they were some dressing people. They would love fashion, so I kind of inherited that DNA from them. So I always knew how to dress, and I always knew how to look good and to take care of myself. My mom has always been super creative, and that gene kind of passed down to me. Like, she's super creative, like a creative genius, and she kind of passed it to me, and I just took it to another level. So for me, Nerdy Crew was created like this. It started with me making music videos, and then I watched famous artists take the outfits, and then because they had more money, the outfits and the way I was dressing, they would take it and put it in their videos. And then basically what would happen is they would get all the exposure on my look. And I was pretty much, because I didn't have the same resources, nobody knew that these people were taking my ideas when it came to my swagger and my clothes and stuff like that. So I said, you know what? I'm tired of like people stealing from me and not even giving me my credit. You know what I'm saying? And it's cool, that's how they want to dress, but give me a little bit of credit or whatever. And nobody would ever give me my credit. So I said, you know what? Let me just start thinking about making clothes, but I didn't know where to go or where to start. And my mom came across like a link or a website or whatever that where you could design t-shirts or whatever. So I started off with designing t-shirts, and that's how I started. I had this software that I could use, and then I had all these creative ideas, and I started making t-shirts, and then I started learning how to find jacket manufacturers, and then I started learning how to find bag manufacturers in China and all these other different places, and then I started researching and finding more about certain things because I wanted my outfits to look really dope. So what I did was I basically pretty much learned how to do the manufacturing and clothing business within like a 6-month period. From there, what happened after that is I didn't know I was going to create a brand because it was only really to get me to wear my own clothes so nobody else can take them from me. That's kind of what it was. It was like, okay, they keep taking my ideas on my clothes and stuff and my swagger. Let me invent my own swagger and make my own clothes. And that's what that was about. And then it started off with that. It started off as DRM clothing, which was like designing merch, recording merch clothing or something like that I had started off with. And then I made this one collection called Nerdy Crew. And I don't know what came in my mind about the name, but that's what stuck in my mind was the name Nerdy Crew. And I guess it's because, I've always been a person who was informative, who learned a lot, and who did a lot of research on things and knew a lot of stuff. So I'm like, maybe, I can use this Nerdy Crew thing and make this brand what it is from that. So I built this collection, and I created this collection. And then from there, everybody kept saying, you should keep the name. You should name your clothing brand Nerdy Crew. And that's what I did. So I said, all right, let me name my clothing brand Nerdy Crew. And then I started designing a logo. And I started designing a logo through the software. And then eventually I came up with the logo that you see. And then from there, I needed to expand because I'm like, okay, what is this Nerdy Crew brand? That's what I'm asking myself. What is it? What does it stand for? What is it all about? Because at first I'm just making designer clothes. That's what I'm thinking I'm making. You know what I'm saying? And it started off that way because I wanted it to be, look nice and look fly when it came to standing out from all the other artists. That's what it was in the beginning. And then I'm like, okay, if this thing is called Nerdy Crew, it needs to be around who I am and my identity and what I'm trying to build and what I'm trying to design. So started looking at myself, man, I like history, I like math, I like sports, I'm pretty informative, I like doing certain things, I like sports, I like MMA, I like fighting, I like boxing, I like all these different things like anybody else, and I got a lot of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. So I started saying, okay, let me apply who I am as a person to what Nerdy Crew really is. And then I started building up and I started creating some designs. Some of the designs in the beginning wasn't so good. Like we all know, everybody who started a clothing brand, they designs in the beginning is trash. But I started and I kept building and growing over time until I started getting winning designs, or designs I felt was good. And then I started getting the samples from the manufacturers to try them on, and I started taking photos and videos and stuff, and started sharing some of the samples that I had with other people and letting them wear it and see how it felt. And then from there I said, okay, I started with the Smiley brand, the Smiley faces, the Nerdy Crew Smiley face or whatever. And that was like the emoji, the Nerdy Crew emoji. But then I realized if I take that emoji and I put it into a t-shirt, I'm going to get sued, and then I'm going to get a cease and desist. So to avoid that, because I understand law and I understand that, you know, I can be sued, and then whatever I build with that Nerdy Crew brand can be taken away from me. So I had, originally my logo was the smiley face, the Nerdy Crew smiley face, the nerdy, you know, the nerdy smiley face. That was my original logo. And I understood business, and I understood that if I do that, I'm going to get sued. So I went to possibly trying to see if I can get the licensing from the smiley face people. They didn't respond. So I said, okay, they're not going to respond. There's no point in me using this. So God just said, you know what, you creative kid, figure out how to actually make your own kind of mascots and make up, you know, and do that. So that's what I did. I decided to make my own little mascot, you know, called Dr. Minertos.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining Nerdy Crew. I am Dr. Minertos.
And then I designed a backup one just in case it looked too similar to the Nerdy Crew.
Hello guys,
It's for you.
I'm Giggala Nerdy.
And I started creating the body, and I started creating how I want the colors and stuff to be, because I'm real colorful. I like colors. Like, you know, African people, we like colors. You know, well, I'm not African, but, you know, black people, we like colors and stuff. So I made that, and then from there, I took that, and then I had a graphic designer create my logo and my mascot based upon my drawings that I had physically written, and then I explained to him how I want every single detail to be. And then that's what we came up with, the Dr. Minertos. From there, I started to piece together new designs around that, along with creating more designs that I had in my my software. And then I started creating these colorful designs and these different colorways and these different textures and things like that. And that's how I was able to create the brand called Nerdy Crew. I eventually seen that, you know, I can tap into so many different people because I'm being myself, right? So when you're being yourself and you like history, you like math, you like science, you like boxing and MMA, I'm being myself. So now I'm the person that can sell this, because I'm understanding that it's all about you being who you really truly are, right? So that's what I learned about my brand, is that I have to be authentic to me and authentic to my brand for it to work. And because I learned so much of that, and I was doing a lot of research, man. I was looking up Damon John videos. I was looking up so many different people who was actually like in the clothing business. I was studying these people, bro. I was studying them and learning as much as I could about them, and about how they actually did their journey. And then I was studying like the World and Vision guys. Them guys is like, they brilliant. You know what I'm saying? I was studying them because they did it on a small scale out their dorm room. So I was trying to learn how to do it, and I was researching in them, and they kept saying you gotta have your slogan, you gotta have your identity, you gotta have your own thing. When people see Nerdy Crew, what are they looking at? What are they looking at? What is the design? What is your logo, and what is your brand design? What is it around? And then I had to start creating logos and slogans, and that's when I came up with it's just my intelligent swagger. You know what I'm saying? Or Nerdy Crew is just for you, or certain other little things, certain slogans to match what the t-shirt would be along with the designs. And over time, I basically kind of learned the ins and outs by watching all these different people. I learned from a lot of different people, man. YouTube YouTube is good when you're trying to learn something, especially from people who are more successful than you and know more about the business than you do. So I learned a lot about that business by watching other people and researching them, and that's why I give my hats off to those guys. Same thing with the guy that made God is Dope. You know, he was just saying, like, in the beginning, sometimes you got to give your product away so that people can get to know who you are and get to know what your brand is. And you know, if you see 100 people with this kind of shirt right here, you know what I'm saying, it's going to stand out more than if you see a bunch of people that got a bunch of different types of designs. So I had to redesign my whole catalog of clothes because I understood that at that point I was designing clothes around my music career, not around the actual brand. So what happened from there is me designing around my music brand or whatever, it was causing issues with my clothing brand. So I had to say, okay, I need to step away from the music right now because that system with the streaming is not really doing it. You got to find another way. So I started to focus more on the clothing thing and started to learn more about the clothing thing. And it took me about 18 months to learn a lot, and I'm still learning more day by day. But I had to build it from there. And then eventually, once I had winning designs and winning ideas, and then I knew who my identity was for the brand, I knew what the identity of the brand was. And then I also understood what the name stands for and what it symbolizes, and also who, me being the founder of it, what do I represent? That's when I started saying, okay, I'm going to target my audience here. Once I knew what my audience was and I started coming up with these creative ideas, then you got people trying to copy your ideas, but they're not understanding that your brand don't match what those ideas are. So that's why you're failing, because you're taking ideas that don't match with who your brand is. If that's not who you are as a person and you're taking these people ideas and that's not your brand, it's not going to work. My brand was contingent around